Hello all. I want to share another restoration that I just recently completed. It's an Arvin Model 552N from late 1946, early 1947. Arvin also produced this radio with push buttons in ivory and walnut. The radio is your typical All-American 5, covering the broadcast band from 540 to 1600 kilocycles. Again, it has a very small 4-inch speaker that I decided to stick my finger through during the restoration. The walnut Bakelite is actually in great shape. There's no cracks. There are a few deep scratches on the front, one on the top, and I think one on the side. But not bad shape for a radio this age for sure. A couple quick glances here, some of the photos from underneath and top of the chassis. Just a couple places with rust that we'll take care of with some navel jelly. Other than that, the radio's in very, very good shape. As you can see in the photos, the AC line cord is bad, and we'll replace that. In addition, there's a 3-prong connector around the antenna that plugs the loop antenna into the chassis. Those wires are frayed, so we'll clean that up also. Removing the 4 screws on the bottom plate allowed access to the electronic side. Here are a couple photos of the vintage electronics. One thing that you probably noticed right away, there's kind of a hodgepodge of capacitors in the radio. Not sure if that was because of the particular period and that's what was available. Again, it's not a very expensive radio, but again, if that's not the case, then I would imagine somebody's been in here to do repairs numerous times. One thing that's obvious, you can see the electrolytic capacitor was replaced at some point. It's all taped and spliced. We'll take care of that. The next step in the restoration process was to pull the 5 tubes out of the radio and again just focus on doing an initial cleaning of the chassis and kind of a deeper inspection of the areas that have rust that we'll spend some time on in just a minute. With the first layer of crud off the radio, here you can see again a little bit of rust on top of the chassis by the volume control and then by the tuning condenser, and maybe just a little bit up by the speaker itself. Again, I just pulled out a little navel jelly, applied it, and did my best to try to get the rust off the chassis. This radio is not very, very valuable, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the chassis or really take any time to repaint it. I'm going to just try to remove the rust and move on with the restoration. Again, using the navel jelly, I was able to get probably 90% of the rust removed from the chassis. There's still a few places with some pitting, and again, I'm not going to spend any additional time on it. The dial pointer was extremely faded. I applied 2 coats of red acrylic paint. The variable tuning condenser had a lot of crud that I just could not clean out, so I ended up removing it and running it through the ultrasonic cleaner on about 3 or 4 cycles just to get rid of the crud between the plates and remove any shorts that I had, which there looks like I did have a short according to the VOM testing. In addition, the rubber grommets were in very, very bad shape and brittle, so it was worth the time to pull that out and do it right. Moving along to the electrical restoration, here again are a couple photos of the underneath side of the chassis. Again, all the electrolytic capacitors and the paper and wax capacitors were replaced. In addition, I had an open resistor R9, 470,000 ohms. It was killing the plate voltage to the 12SQ7 tube. All the other resistors were within 10 to 20% tolerance. I failed to mention earlier all the tubes were checked and replaced as needed. Here's a quick look at the variable tuning condenser mounted back to the radio. You can see it's a little cleaner and a little brighter. The antenna work that I mentioned that needed to be done around the 3-prong connector and the leads that tie back into the backside of the chassis. Here are a couple photos of the radio back together. Again, I need to spend some time replacing the grill cloth and do some additional deep cleaning around the vertical grills on the front and back. I also took time to paint the Arvin logo on the front in red. The paint had faded out. Again, the Bakelite cleaned up rather well. Again, there's a few scratches you can see here in the photo, and I may spend a little bit more time trying to polish those out when I replace the grill cloth. Again, thanks for stopping by, checking out this quick restoration on this Arvin 552N. Here's the radio playing out in the shop. Take care.